Sammy, what's it like to be attacked by seven men?
7 men or 7 cowards?
I'll let you decide.
You're referring to my incident in Camden Town, one of the most liberal parts of London, where I was waving like a UK flag and an Israel flag, shouting, "Fight for your freedom or you will no longer have freedom. We are not afraid of Islamist terrorists and the Jewish people will live forever." And I said cowards for a reason, because you said 7 men all at once. Not one of them would approach me if two of their friends weren't already in front of my face. The only time I actually got hit was when one of them courageously punches over their friend's shoulder. I'm trying to fend off two guys at once, and the third guy is the one that hits me. Or two of them are grabbing onto my coat, and the other one hits me. There's no men involved in this. They attacked like a pack of dogs, yeah. And because I'm courageous and they're cowards, I fended them off, and that's all it takes. And that's why I did that little solo demonstration, because I had to show people, first of all, that we have to be courageous and that we have to stand up for our values and our freedom. And we have to ensure consequences to these cowards and these people that attack like dogs. And I also wanted to show people who really runs the streets of London. Like, this is not an Islamist part of town. This is a very liberal and tolerant and kind and accepting, all the fluffy bullshit words that mean nothing.
So you woke up that day. You knew you were going to go to the protest, but were you expecting anything like that?
There was no protest. It was a solo demonstration. I had a friend with a camera and a friend or two 10, 15 meters away, kind of just watching my back. And they attacked from behind me. The only reason I turn around in time is because one of them shouted to catch my attention to turn around at the right moment. Like, they couldn't even attack me when I'm facing them. Like, there's no men involved in this situation. But I don't know what brought about that urge for me, because I've felt this responsibility from the start. I teach self-defense and I've done a lot of security for the Jewish community in the UK. And I'm not afraid of these people. These people are weak. These people are cowards, as I said. So I felt like I had to show people that we're allowing cowards and these bullies and these dogs to run our streets and to take over our societies. And we have to, the only way to stand up to them is courage and to ensure consequences. And two of them, at least two of them, left there more hurt than I did. And there were 7 of them and one of me.
So how many such incidents have you had like that? That was one incident where you've obviously been attacked. Have there been others where you've been out there for your cause, or others where you've just, maybe had no aggression whatsoever and yet been attacked?
Yeah, I've been assaulted just for speaking to people. Like, I started my content journey by going to these anti-Israel marches in London and interviewing protesters. At first, I thought I could change people's minds or have a discourse. How naive was I?
Didn't work?
How are you going to change the world by changing one person's mind at a time? This is why the education, the intellectual, and the Hasbara route hasn't worked. And we should realize that by now.
Tell us about Hasbara.
I realized that quickly. Hasbara comes from the Hebrew word to explain. And you can't explain yourself when you should know. If you were confident and strong, you would know that you're the moral party. You would know that you're the one fighting for your life and for your morals. So you shouldn't have to explain yourself. As soon as you explain yourself, you sit yourself down in that guilty seat. So I realized after my first video, that's not my purpose. Everyone else is focused on the education and all that. I realized immediately from the feedback I got was that's not the impact I'm going to have. The impact I'm going to have is the same impact I had teaching self-defense, empowerment. People see a Jew going undercover in front of all these jihadis and people that hate him, and acting calmly and just interviewing them and having a discourse and kind of playing the fence, playing as if he's not sure, sort of just to get them to come out of their shell. And that's what I did. And I got assaulted. You asked. I got assaulted by 2, whatever the hell they were, transgenders at a anti-Israel march just almost 2 years ago now. And I asked them about whether they knew about this guy, Ahmad Abu Maria. He was a Palestinian gay guy from Hebron who fled to Israel. By the way, there's hundreds of cases like him that have fled to Israel from the West Bank, from Judea and Samaria, to escape persecution for being gay. And they've been accepted and allowed asylum into Israel. Yeah? This guy was kidnapped by Palestinians in Israel, taken back to Hebron and beheaded. And I told them that. And they were like, okay, but what does that have to do with this? Like whatever, because they just wouldn't allow it to challenge their own preconceptions. Right?
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. A quick one from me. If you wouldn't mind clicking like and subscribe, it would really help the channel out. Back to the video.
Seems like they've made up their mind ahead of time about what they're going to believe, and that's why this explanation isn't landing with them.
And that's why they just jumped to literally just assaulting me for words. They would not allow that to challenge their prejudice and their preconception. And these people, they don't have facts and rational and reasonable thoughts attached to their opinions. They have emotion and childish intellect attached to their thoughts. So as soon as something challenges it, it's like physical pain for them. And I've seen this without being assaulted, but these overgrown children literally assaulted me and found out after the fact.
So you've said that one by one is going to go too slow, one by one's not going to work. How do you change the minds of the masses?
Those people that already follow me and have heard me speak know that I try to stay away from the politics, because I think the politics, whilst it's essential, and obviously our vote is our ability to make change at the top level. Politicians and the system is made up of people. Everyone is a person at the end of the day, and people are influenced by culture. It's culture that needs to change. It's culture that I'm attacking. It's culture that is decaying. Our culture is the anomaly across human existence. Freedom, tolerance, abundance, and all of these things that we take for granted because we don't have any perspective. Like, this is my first time in Miami, and all these people, they've got their penthouse apartment in New York, and they have Miami, and that's their reality. They have no perspective. So when I went traveling around the world and I saw places like Egypt and Mexico and how much happiness there is with very little abundance in Mexico, and how dog eat dog it is in Egypt, and how they are terrified of speaking their mind politically because there is no trust in that society. Their own brother would snitch on them. They'll get picked up by the police and never seen again. That's the majority of human existence, is squalor, tyranny, brutality, and war. And we have these perfect realities in Miami and New York that we can't even fathom violence. We can't fathom anything different. But when really, this is not even a fraction of a percentage of the people that have ever existed in history, including today, have our reality. So how do we influence and bring it back to our morals and protect our societies is by going after the culture, which is decaying. The politics just follows.
Yeah, I've recently heard that the top 1% in the 1950s had a lower standard of living than the middle class American today. You think about showers, air conditioning, TVs, right? The standard of life today is so wonderful. I think that gets forgotten a lot of the time. We just take it for granted. Another thing we take for granted, the freedom, right? You mentioned in Egypt, people can't speak up. That's something that we can do here, right? The very people that we speak up against, we wouldn't even have the freedom to do so unless it was allowed to us. And I think that kind of gets lost in just, what's the word? We become ungrateful for the freedom that
Absolutely.
we have.
Let me touch on that?
Yeah, go.
Because how many comedy shows do you think there are in Egypt or in Russia? With even that little thing we take for granted, because comedy is so funny because it's based in the truth. And we can joke about Trump, and we can joke about Kamala, and we can joke about Keir Starmer for now. Although in the UK, I won't go back because people are being arrested by the thousand for making people anxious on Facebook or for challenging the dogma which the government and the Islamist takeover wants you to submit to. And you just mentioned ungrateful. So this is the part of the culture which is necessary to change, is the gratitude. And I believe that it starts with perspective. So my solo travels gave me an enormous amount of perspective on what's normal, what's not, and what's fragile and what's precious. Also my upbringing, like I grew up in a beautiful Jewish community which is very supportive and self-sufficient. And then I went to public school when I was 16, and it was like going from 100 to 0. I went to the biggest Jewish school in Europe, and then I went to public school at 5'5" and 50 kilos, like 100 pounds, 100 and something pounds. And I realized, whoa, I took that for granted. Not just my Jewish identity, but my personal safety.
What
right?
happened? What was the difference there, changing schools?
Well, I went from the biggest Jewish school in Europe.
where you
to
were
the only-
immediately accepted, immediately
But
identified.
it's not even just that. It's just that I had no perspective on why being Jewish was so important. Like sitting down for Shabbat dinner on a Friday night. Other people don't do that. Yeah, Christians might have their Sunday lunch,
Sure.
but not everyone, and that's declining. Or it was. I think we're slowly moving back to people moving back to faith, moving back to family values, but it's too slow because we've drastically moved away from it because we didn't have that perspective. And I really think it starts with perspective in order to get that gratitude. And that gratitude can't just be like, oh, I'm so grateful. Okay, next. It has to move on to what I push, which is courage. We can't have courage or stand up for anything if we don't know what we're standing up for, and if we're not grateful for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be able to give people perspective, make them grateful, and motivate them to be courageous to save our societies.
So you obviously grew up in the UK. How has the experience for a Jewish person changed in the last 20 years in the UK?
I always say that anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, is not about the Jews. And I think as the diaspora, we've become so weak and so desperate to be accepted. And weakness has come from privilege and prosperity. We've figured out how to be very successful in society, and we've let the other things sort of go. Like we're not formidable anymore. And that has put the blinders up, the rose-tinted glasses up. And I always say that anti-Semitism and Jew hatred is never gone. You can't make it disappear. It's just right beneath the surface. Jew hatred is not about the Jews, which is weird to understand, but makes total sense once you do understand it.
Explain it to me.
The Jews are like the perfect scapegoat. We're so disproportionately successful amongst all these other things, and we make up 0.2% of the world's population. So most people have never met a Jew, knowingly at least. And you've heard the term the canary in the coal mine. The Jew is the canary in the coal mine because the further towards Jew hatred a society goes, that's a good tell for how culture is declining. People are getting more demoralized. People are getting weaker. People are getting more resentful, jealous, and hateful. And as you get more resentful and jealous and hateful, you turn towards the disproportionately successful minority. So the Jews are the communists capitalist and the capitalists communist, or whatever it is. It's the only thing that some Christians and some Muslims can agree on. Or, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. It doesn't matter which religion or which background you're from. If you get dejected and demoralized about your own existence and your own future, naturally, pretty often you're going to turn to a scapegoat. People need a scapegoat. And I always say this, the weakest people in society are the most dangerous people in society. Like from high school bully to Adolf Hitler. These people are, even though they can be intelligent, that's fine. Adolf Hitler, we can't deny his intelligence, but he was weak, he was resentful, he was jealous, all these things I describe. And that's what turns to violent scapegoating. So this Jew hatred was never non-existent in the UK. It was just beneath the surface for most people. And as we were desperate to assimilate, not unique to the UK, in the diaspora, we're less visibly Jewish. So we feel it less. Until there's an excuse to turn hatred into social justice, which is the last 4 years. Yeah, 3-4 years. I saw it really ramping up in like 2021 when the BBC, and I don't know how long the BBC has been so ideologically corrupt. I have no idea. It could have been 10-15 years for all we know. I saw in 2021 the BBC reporting on an incident on Ramadan in Jerusalem where tens of thousands of Muslims in Israel pray peacefully at Al-Aqsa, at the Temple Mount, for Ramadan every single day. And then you have like these 200 radicals who store rocks and projectiles in their own mosque, yeah, the third holiest site in Islam, yeah, to throw down on the Jews, which are directly beneath. So the the supposed third holiest site in Islam is built directly on top of the holiest site in Judaism, and we're the colonizers. But anyway, so the BBC sees that, and obviously the Israeli police have to go in there and arrest them before they get to throw the rocks down on the Jews praying at the Western Wall beneath. And the BBC get their beautiful snapshots of IDF soldiers with their visors on and tear gas, even though these radicals are throwing rocks and projectiles inside their own mosque. Yeah, they get these photos and the headline, 2 years in a row. They did the same thing 2 years in a row. IDF storms mosque in Jerusalem on Ramadan and arrests peaceful worshippers. And quite literally, I said I was doing security for the Jewish community pretty much every week, even back then. You would see it in the streets. You'd have people in cars full of Arabs driving past synagogues and screaming at Jewish children.
One thing that you mentioned there was perhaps the charisma of Hitler. Even though he had this tyrannical view and terrible beliefs, his charisma ultimately got him power. I think we've seen something similar with the effect of charisma in New York recently. The recent election with Mamdani showed how powerful charisma is. All of his policies that he mentioned, he doesn't even have the power to implement. And the only ones that were electable, he actually changed his mind on for the most part, defund the police and those sorts of things. I'm interested, what are your thoughts on this recent election? What does this say? You've obviously seen the evolution in the UK of the uprising of Muslim leaders in politics. This is New York's first Muslim mayor. What are your thoughts on that?
That guy is terrifying. Free buses, guys. If that's enough, that's enough to get my generation to vote him. That's enough to get Jews to vote for him. That's so insane. People like me and you see straight through that because we're strong as individuals. We have a strong character and we have the ability to think logically and reasonably. But when you're dejected and demoralized and resentful and weak, we're sticking one to the rich people by making our buses free and taxing them some more.
I saw that 1 million people said that they would leave New York if he was elected. Now, will they actually leave? That's to be determined. But coincidentally, the day after the election, I received a completely cold email from somebody asking if they could buy my apartment in Miami. And I don't think that was a coincidental timing. I think it was related. One thing that strikes me about the election in New York, and similar to what you were saying about the BBC coverage in Israel, is how one-sided it seems to be from so many media outlets. And I've always wondered, what's the incentive there? What's the incentive to just not say what's happening? What's the incentive to push a different agenda? Genuinely don't know the answer. Wondering if you have a different perspective.
Their incentive is to topple society. Like I said, these systems and politics is made up of people. And the BBC is state funded, it's taxpayer funded, and it's like civil servants allocate those funds, and people are corruptible. It's the bureaucracy and the bureaucrats that are corruptible. It's not the people you've heard of that are the problem, for the most part. So the incentive is these people are dejected, demoralized, all of these things I've told you about and I describe. That's the issue. They want to topple the structure of society because it doesn't work for them. They don't feel like it's serving them. They feel as though it's failing them, and they feel resentful. They feel resentment towards it. So they feel that as people get weaker, they want things to conform to their dogma, to their opinion more. And their opinion is less based in fact and more based in emotion as they get weaker. And that resentment guides that opinion, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's based in truth. And it's actually culture and the strength of the individual that's been corrupted, and not the political opinion. It's that comes second. That's corrupted by the culture.
Got it. Vivek Ramaswamy said, "Wokeness sacrifices true diversity so that skin-deep symbols of diversity like race and gender can thrive." When I met you, you were doing an Ask Me Anything where you said wokeism is fascism. People would sit down in, I forget which circle was it. It wasn't Columbus Circle.
Washington Square.
Washington Square, that's right. And people would come and sit down. What was that experience like? And why do you say wokeism is fascism?
Wow, that was my first time in New York and potentially my last time. What a deranged place that park is. My word, it's right next to NYU.
You see some characters, that's for
it's
sure.
just,
Lots of hair colors.
it's just so insane. And the fact that I had to have 2 security guards to sit down at a table and ask people questions and just have a discourse is a sign of the times, right? Because people are so weak, they're so insecure about their own opinions that they can't calmly and rationally challenge them with someone else, let alone even themselves in front of the mirror. So the reason I say wokeism is fascism. Wokeism is the progressive ideology of all of these things like transgenderism and the climate and whatever it is, COVID vaccine mandates, whatever you might think it is, all the way to Palestine. It's fascism because they shut down, often violently, those that disagree with them. That's the definition of fascism. Fascism is the collective groupthink persecuting anything that disagrees with them, with that dogma. So, and that has a lot to do with ideological subversion. So they flip reality, and then they gaslight you at the very least, or all the way up to persecuting you violently for disagreeing.
We've seen that a lot in the UK for what I can't actually believe, people being arrested for speaking, for tweets, for Instagram posts. One such man, a friend of both of ours, Ryan Williams, the Scottish Korean, he's just announced that he's heading back. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I met him the same time as I met you, and I really like the guy. He's got a real character, and character goes a long way in this fight because people are so focused on the politics. As I said, people are focused on the wrong things. We need to go after the culture, and we need to inspire people, and using comedy and using satire and using these things are very effective ways of doing so, and he's an expert at it. But the UK, I mean, he knows. The UK is no joke right now. I mean, the whole free world is under immense threat. We're on the brink right now. And I worry for his safety, very much so. If he gets imprisoned, he better know how to defend himself because the prison systems are overrun with Islamists.
What percentage, I remember reading this, what percentage of the prisons are currently, I'm not sure if it was Islamists or Pakistani, but it was,
I have no idea, but it's very, very significant. I mean, Birmingham is the majority demographic in Birmingham, the second largest city in the United Kingdom, is Muslim. London is 15% Muslim. London, between 1 in 10 and 1 in 12 people is an illegal migrant.
Wow. You're known for saying peace through strength. What does that mean to you? Where did this come from? Why is that your slogan?
The problem is not politics, it's culture. And the problem with culture is weakness, right? I am a very strong believer. I'm a self-defense instructor. I am a very strong believer. I'm someone with ADHD, so I always have to move. I always have to be physically active or doing whatever to make sure that my mind is either focused or happy or calm, you know? And I believe that applies to everyone. That's not just, maybe it's more so with me. It's more evident with me, especially to my teachers at school. But it's so essential. Happy body, happy mind. I say this at all of my talks, and I want to start talking about it more because we revere, like Navy SEALs, for example, right? They are the toughest of the tough. But what's more important, and people who have no physical capability, when I ask this question to the crowd, always answer immediately the correct answer. What's more important for a Navy SEAL? Mental or physical strength? Mental. They have to be resilient as resilient gets, right? How do they get to that point? Physical. It's a paradox. You can't have mental strength without physical strength. And that doesn't mean I can deadlift 3 times my weight. That means I can run 3 miles, and even though my mind is saying, oh, I want to quit, oh, my ankle's hurting, I push myself through every single time I hear the voice saying I want to quit. The stitch, I run straight through it, you know, the cramp. That teaches your mind that I can do hard things. It teaches your mind that I can resist temptation. I can overcome all of these things that are essential for having a well-rounded opinion based in rational thought. If you can't trust yourself to finish the 3 miles because every time you say you're going to do 3 miles, you fall short, how can you trust yourself to have a valid opinion on anything, or be self-confident enough to challenge your own opinion? People take themselves so seriously, not because they're strong, but because they're weak. People can't challenge their own thoughts.
It's funny you mentioned mental strength. One of the things I've invested a lot of my research in is the what I call the battle for the mind, the civil war. And the science is you've got your amygdala, which is kind of telling you eat the cake, and then you got your prefrontal cortex, which is saying think ahead, think beyond what you want now, eat the salad, right? That sort of thing. Do you follow Andrew Huberman at all?
I love the man.
Okay, so you might have seen this already, but one of the things that he talks about is a part of the brain called the AMCC, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And the reason he says it's so valuable is because it's very rare that we can isolate one portion of the brain to a specific function. Broca's area, Wernicke's area for either speech or interpretation. That's a big deal. When we look at the AMCC, we're teetering on saying it is the center for willpower. And so obviously you want to grow your AMCC to make it as strong as possible so that you can have as much willpower as possible to do those things that you want to do and say no to the things that you don't want to do. When he talked about this, he referenced a study. And in this study, they had 2 groups. Group A did 4 hours extra of stretching per week. Group B did 4 hours extra of cardio per week. And the goal was to see, what would have a bigger impact on the AMCC. Group A experienced virtually no growth in their AMCC. What they noticed was that it was pretty easy for them. They enjoyed stretching, and so as a result, it didn't increase. Their willpower didn't increase at all. The group that had to do 4 hours of extra cardio per week saw ginormous increases until they started enjoying cardio. So what that means is if I'm a runner and I hate it and I wake up in the morning doing something I hate, something that's hard for me, my AMCC will grow. But the day I start enjoying the running, the AMC says that's not hard for you anymore. I'm going to stop growing. So it has this sort of positive feedback loop where in order to increase your willpower, you have to do hard things, which makes it harder to find something that's hard, but will eventually increase your willpower again. He's gone as far to say that people who have higher rates of depression typically have a smaller AMCC. So in other words, one possible way to combat depression: do hard things. Do hard things in your life, and a variety of benefits such as appreciation, gratitude, and sorts of things. But biologically, your AMCC will increase. Side bit, but I know you're a Huberman fan.
No, that's fantastic. Huberman has inspired me in many, many ways. He brings science to the people. And he makes it, he takes it out of the textbook and says, apply this to your life and your life will get better. Like, it takes courage to do hard things. It takes courage to step outside your comfort zone. And your comfort zone, I call it your stagnation zone. And when you're stagnating, you're getting worse. Pretty much with anything. If a cancerous cell doesn't seem to be growing, doesn't seem to be shrinking, it's most likely growing. Things don't just kind of stay the same. If it's stagnating, it's getting worse.
You've probably heard that quote, the opposite of greatness isn't weakness, it's comfort. It's the people who are comfortable that won't achieve greatness because it's good enough. The porridge is just hot enough for me to make it even better.
Which is why socialism is so fundamentally anti-human, because it doesn't incentivize growth. The growth mindset is the most, and I've been speaking with my fiance about this, it's the most important part about being in a healthy relationship. You must always be striving to get better emotionally, physically, and just with everything, professionally, with everything. You must always be striving to do hard things. And doing hard things goes from jumping in the cold plunge every single day. And when it starts to be enjoyable, you do different things. So, okay, I didn't have my hands in because my hands start to shake. I put my hands in, or I put my head in, or I move around in the cold plunge to make it even harder for myself. You have to constantly challenge yourself. It's stagnation as soon as that once difficult thing becomes easy and enjoyable. And socialism's the opposite of that. It's the lack of incentive to work any harder than anyone else. It's fundamentally anti-human. And the only way you get to wanting socialism is dejection, demoralization, resentment, and the lack of wanting to, the lack of growth mindset, the lack of wanting to step outside your comfort zone and be courageous and do something hard.
I've always had this opinion that in general, people want to achieve more. They're just too lazy to do it. But my partner, she actually says, no, there's actually people in the world who are just happy with living right here. Where would you lie on that spectrum? Or maybe there's a third option. Do people truly want greatness? They're just too lazy to get it? Or are there people that are just like, no, I'm good at 5 out of 10?
I think people truly want greatness, but are misguided about how to get it. They are, especially today, think about how far away we are from how we evolved to be. We're the same clump of cells that existed in the caves. Yeah. And there's a book called Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari, and that teaches you a lot about how far away we've strayed from our natural state and our natural experience. We're only supposed to know or acquaint with 150 people. Yeah. I've got 10 times that on my personal Facebook page, like it's, and they're called friends there. So it's anxiety inducing to have so much stimulation, so much responsibility, so much of everything. So I really do think people want to strive to do better. That's like, you look at every single animal and living being, everything is striving. Competition is fundamentally part of nature. Like, this tree and this tree are battling for the same sunlight, and they will literally battle. Like, you'll have ivy climbing up the tree trunk just to catch a little bit more sun than the other branch of ivy. Competition is fundamentally natural, but as soon as we are misguided either by ideology or by culture or by experiences that are dejecting, we lose that very quickly. And as beings, as animals, naturally we like comfort. Like, you give a rat unlimited cheese, all right, it's going to get fat and just lounge around. Like, it's obviously, and we have unlimited cheese. You hardly need to be earning $30,000 to have virtually unlimited cheese.
Have you heard of that Rattopia experiment?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's exactly what I'm referring to. We have this such unnatural level of abundance of everything, abundance of friends, abundance of food, abundance of heat and cool and everything, that we have no natural driver to push us towards those hard things. We don't have to, here in the West, we don't have to carry a bucket of water on our head for 2 miles. That's hardship. Excel spreadsheets are not natural hardship. But that brings me back to, this is what I always push, and I'm a proponent of voluntary hardship. People pay for memberships so that they can lift steel bars up and down, so that they can put themselves through voluntary hardship and feel good and feel better and have that growth mindset. It's essential. It is essential to our existence on this planet. And as soon as we are misguided by whatever it is, we turn to resentment and dejection and all of that.
Yeah, I saw something on Instagram today. I reposted it on my story. It said, the United States is the only country where you can wear $175 shoes, buy a $7 latte, and then post on your $1,200 iPhone how bad capitalism is.
Yeah. And when things are so good and you have such a lack of real problems, like Excel spreadsheet problems instead of the bucket of the water problems, you strive for perfection, right? And again, naturally, perfection is impossible. Naturally. Every single tree that you plant with the same species of seed is going to be totally different. And that's largely to do with competition and the fact that things just grow differently in different directions. So it's essential to want to strive to be better. We have to be able to realize that perfection's impossible, but that doesn't mean we can't strive to be better. Like, people say end racism and end violence against women. Both of those things are impossible. We're tribal beings. As I said, we're only supposed to know or acquaint with 150 people roughly. Of course, as beings, as a survival instinct, we're anxious or unsure of the unknown or the unfamiliar. So there is an element of our existence and our brain chemistry, which is going to be prejudicial in some way, profiling in some way, right? But we can strive to be better. We have more intelligence, we have more knowledge now, we have the ability to be better. But you can't end these things. We don't live in a perfect world. There'll always be bad parents, therefore there'll always be bad people, right? So, and this is evidence for why perfection is impossible, right?
Totally.
You see the wokies and the socialists on the streets, the same people who say end violence against women are the same people inviting the Stone Age Islamists into our societies, which are raping our children. Rape has gone up. Since I was born in the year 2000, rape has gone up 800% in the UK.
I saw that the UK and Sweden, the two countries that have brought in the most immigrants as a proportion of population, have experienced the highest increase in rape out of any country in Europe.
The UK is one of the countries with the highest proportion of immigrants. Wow.
Yeah, given its rape cases.
Wow.
And it's just shocking that these aren't more, I don't know, taken to heart or more analyzed, or at least maybe they're not causation, but at least see the correlation and see what other triggers might be pulling that. You mentioned perfection. I'm a culprit in my past of having judged something by perfection. I tell this story where I used to live in Washington, D.C. Have you stopped there yet on your travels?
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Did you like it?
Only for 48 hours I was there, but yes, I really liked it.
Yeah, it's
a
a
cool
very
city.
clean city.
Really cool city.
And I used to live in Capitol Hill. I would run down East Capitol, which is the road that leads, obviously, from the east side towards the Capitol. It's kind of split into a quadrant, do you see? And I was running with a friend, get to the end, right across from the Capitol is the Supreme Court. At the top of the Supreme Court, it says equal justice under law. And I was in a bad mood that day, I guess. I don't know. I was feeling jaded. And I said, can you believe this? Equal justice under law. Anyone does this or that and blah, blah, blah. And I was talking about these unfair standards. And my friend, he goes, yes, but out of any country in the world, that statement is most true in the United States. And what he was changing my mind on was, okay, I was comparing the U.S. to perfection. Of course, no country's going to live out that statement perfectly, equal justice under law. But which country does it the best? And which country does it the worst? And what's the spectrum in between? That's what's important to focus on, because we're not going to achieve perfection. And that perspective changed my mind on a lot of things. And it's where I really started looking at the U.S. as this powerhouse. Someone needs to explain to me, when I tell my friends back home in Australia that America is the greatest country in the world, they jump all over me. And I say, well, explain to me this. How is it that a country with less than 350 million people is competing with India, 1.4 billion, China, 1.5 billion? The basis of any economy is a person. And why is it? Imagine you had a paintball team of 25 people versus 100 people. Why is it that the paintball team of 25 people is beating them every single time? You'd say there's something else going on there. And yes, there is. It's called capitalism and freedom. And I think people underestimate how much of the policy impact of capitalism and freedom have on an economy like the US, which just has this amazing output. I was watching this interview with Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro the other day, and Netanyahu actually said there's two cities in the world that have immense technological potential. And he said Israel, and specifically Tel Aviv, and Miami, where we sit today. And if you look at all of the technological advancements that have come out of the last, let's say 20 years, you can kind of bucket them into one of those two categories. They're not coming from Indonesia.
I agree with the assessment that America is the greatest country in the world. You left out one key word then, and you said that beautifully. Meritocracy. The incentive to have the growth mindset. The growth mindset is not just what makes America so great, but it's what saved the free world in World War II. Bigger, stronger, better, faster. That's America.
Quoting Kanye.
More power. Yeah, I guess. Damn. No, but it's fine. He apologized.
He apologized. He's good enough.
But seriously, the growth mindset is fundamental to existence. It's fundamental to nature. And if we stop having the growth mindset has us. So if we stop wanting to get better physically and mentally, we're likely to get a cancerous cell. And that's the danger of neglecting the growth mindset, because then it goes out of control. As soon as you start looking after yourself, which means growth mindset, which means constantly striving to be better, more focused, calmer, more reasoned, stronger, all of these things that are just progression in every angle. We start to lose our health. We start to lose our rationality, everything. But America literally saved the free world because of the growth mindset. It's not because the technology was better. It's definitely not because the fighters were better. America was not war ready. Far from it. They were training on the job. When they jumped into the war, they were training in the war. America won the war because it out-manufactured everyone. That's period. That's it.
You mentioned before competition being very important. A lot of people look at competition as a negative thing, hence the rise of participation awards and these sorts of things. Why is competition a good thing?
Well, the people that view competition as a negative thing, let's talk about them first. They're dejected, they're demoralized, they're resentful, they're jealous, they're hateful, they are weak. That's it. I'm going to keep saying those 5-6 words over and over and over again.
How do you win them over? How do you turn someone, let's say, that's weak, and you convince them at least that being strong is a worthy cause, attempting to, or, get them there? What's the process in that? Because for me, I don't see a win scenario if they stay weak. I only see a win scenario if we overall make the weak people stronger and the strong people stronger. Right? That's what we want to see. We don't want to see this separation of the strong people from the weak or the rich from the poor. You'd like to see a general increase. How do you solve for that?
First of all, competition needs to be between you and your past self, not between you and your classmates, first of all. I mean, naturally, yeah, it is. But at the bottom line, the buck stops with you. Life is not about what happens to you, but it's about how you respond to it, how you react in every way. Like, God forbid a family member dies. You can be dejected about it. You can tear yourself apart. You can fall into depression for years, or you can pick yourself up and in their memory, do great things, right? It's a choice. Everything is a choice. So the first thing I would say to people who are dejected, demoralized, seeking that participation award and not moving towards the growth mindset, and who think competition is toxic and not essential, I'd say, you're not a victim. You are not a victim of your own defeat. You're a victim of your own mindset, which says that you're a victim. Your mindset is all that's holding you down, not other people. The fact that you're comparing yourself to other people is the reason you're resentful in the first place. You should be resentful of yourself for thinking that way. The most uncomfortable things and the most important things to hear are often the most uncomfortable. The most important conversations to have are the ones that you have to have with yourself in front of the mirror. Yeah? When you want to scream, or when you want to cry, or when you want to jump for joy. This is really important, actually. I'm a big follower, or I used to be, of the UFC. Yeah? And any sportsman.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, there's a number of them. Alex Pereira, he's just too good. And he's a biological freak. The guy's got hands of stone. But anyway, but if I was another fighter in his weight class, just to use him as an example, I could feel demoralized by the fact that he's biologically more lucky than I am, or I could train harder, right? But to use sportsmen and sports prodigies as an example, when they win a championship, they have the highest of the high, right? Which means what? They are only destined, their mood and their mental state is only destined to fall from there. They've just won the world championship, everything they were training for. They have the high, they have the party, they have everything, however they choose to celebrate. And then it's downhill. And there's studies to show that depression falls for people who don't know how to deal with that. Yeah. If you don't get straight back to training and you're still expecting this la la land of your victory to stick around, guess what? You forgot about the growth mindset. You forgot about the number one most important thing of being a successful person is I don't care if I won, I don't care if I lost, even if it's in the biggest way possible, either way. Yeah, you have to keep going. How crazy is that people who are winning the world championship can be as depressed as anyone could possibly be depressed 2 weeks later?
It kind of speaks to what you see, where you see let's say a famous person who seems to have everything: money, loved. They've obviously got a purpose in whatever they've become famous for, and they kill themselves, right? It happens more frequently than it should. And you think, how could the whole world strive for what these people have, and yet when they get there, they're not happy? You've talked a lot about weakness. Jonathan Sachs is a guy I follow. He says conviction without humility is arrogance. Humility without conviction is weakness. What are your thoughts on that?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. First of all, he's incredible. He is, wow. That reminds me of your kindness is not a virtue unless you are capable of violence or courage. Right?
Yeah.
You can be kind to everyone you encounter in your life. It's arrogant to think that that's virtuous. It's arrogant because the moment you meet someone who wants to kill you, you'll realize it was your only option, right? You have to be capable of strength, of courage, and of violence first to be virtuous with your kindness. Otherwise, it's your only option. So, and to go back to the weakness thing, the dangerous people are the weak people, not the strong people. The strong people are the virtuous people. Yeah. To take this to Israel, and I use Israel as an example because it's the contrast in British culture and Israeli culture is unbelievable. Like we're like unproductively polite, I describe Britain. Yeah. In Israel, we're the absolute opposite. We're so blunt. We have no time for it. Yeah. Israel does not get peace from flying to Haiti and sending a delegation to save earthquake victims. It certainly doesn't get peace when it flies to Turkey, a sworn enemy, to save and help earthquake victims just recently. Yeah. It gets peace and respect from being physically formidable. You hit me, I promise to hit you 10 times as hard, at least, in response.
Let's talk about that, because obviously the Israel-Palestine conflict has somewhat come to a close. And we'll take this with a grain of salt, but one BBC article said that they retrieved IDF documentation that self-described the civilian to militant death ratio as 5 to 6, meaning 83% approximately of the deaths were civilian deaths, which was different than how they kind of started, especially with their kind of pager attacks where it was very pinpointed. Was their response proportionate? Too far? Where does it lie in your mind?
First of all, we have to understand who we're dealing with. The Jewish book, the Torah, is the foundations for the morals of Western society. They call it Judeo-Christian values. Guess where that comes from? Yeah. We are not dealing with people of the same morals as us. We are dealing with people who worship someone who married a 6-year-old. Yeah. We have to understand, and he was a warlord. He ordered the beheadings of hundreds of people, thousands of people. We have to understand that we are not dealing with people who think rationally or have the same moral compass as us. As a result, they use this has never been seen. Even the Nazis never did this. They use their own civilians as cannon fodder, as their shield. There has to be a point where, hold on, what does proportionality mean? First of all, when you're dealing with this, when someone doesn't use the rule book or the playbook that everyone else plays by, how could you possibly do the same and expect to come out on top? So when you look at, first of all, when you look at Islam, they believe in persecution and murder of those that do not conform and submit to the will of Allah, which is what the word Islam means. And when you're looking at Gaza or the enemies of Israel, which is Islam, let's just put it how it is, or radical Islamists, you have to use your own morals. You have these international pressures and rules of war, and you have to use them as guidance and not as a rule book. The ability to act rationally after something like October the 7th is not a reasonable expectation, I don't think. Like, let's just simplify it a bit. If there's two little neighborhoods of 10 houses each, and one of the neighborhoods enters the other on the morning of one of the holiest days in the year, when all of the power is out, Shabbat morning, and the celebration of the end of the Torah, you restart the Torah the next day, takes hostages. The biggest music festival massacre in history. No one cares in the West, but somehow still Israel is pandering to the UN and Western pressure. Was it proportional? I mean, you look at previous wars when it comes to urban warfare, like Iraq and all of these other wars in the Middle East, and Israel's done a better job of preserving civilian life. And for the most part, Hamas have been more calculated in their hiding amongst civilians and using civilians as shields. Like, using a hospital is no longer a hospital if you use it as a military base and you use it to hold hostages from the other side. A school is no longer a school if you store rockets underneath it, or you shoot rockets from the top of an apartment building. Yet Israel still makes phone calls to the people in that building to tell them to leave. You see all of these videos of rocket impact in Gaza. Why are all of the cameras are so perfectly still? They're sat on a tripod because they know where the rocket's going to land precisely. Literally precisely. Everyone says carpet bombing. There is not one video you will see of carpet bombing in Gaza. You don't know what that is. You want to see carpet bombing? Look at World War II. Britain targeted civilians. Britain's tactic and America, we know, Britain's tactic in World War II was to make the civilians submit by bombing them deliberately. Millions of civilians died in World War II because of direct targeting. Israel is targeting the militia that's using the civilians as their blockade. It's how can we start to talk about proportion? How can we start to talk about reasonable or moral when we're dealing with people like this? And to go back to that example of the 10 houses and the little communities, what would you do if they stole members of your family and took them back to that community, hid them underneath, and then started firing rockets from the top? What on earth do you do? Which is why the same problem in the West, in a different way, is currently unfolding. We are rational thinkers with morals and with values. And we're up against people that come to our societies just to leech off of our societies and to kidnap and rape our children.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that rationally?
I hear you, and it's a very complicated one. I hadn't done much research on the Israel-Palestine conflict prior to October 7th, and then when obviously that hit the news, I thought this is as good a time as ever to research it. And I have no bias in the situation. I have friends that are Jews, I have friends that are Arab and Muslim. I was born in Abu Dhabi, but they don't really claim too much, either way to either side. So I really just wanted to know, what side did I really agree with here? What made sense? And obviously there's gray areas on both sides, but some things I noticed were this. There is not a single Jew living in Palestine. There are a lot of Palestinians living in Israel. When I listened to the 2005 manuscript of Hamas, and it said in its first sentence that its goal was to kill all Jews, it felt like a different ball game was being played. Israel was trying to survive, and Hamas was trying to kill them. It'd be like if you're trying to play Monopoly and I'm trying to win the game and you're just trying to kill me. Different games. And if people say, more people in Palestine have died, more Germans died during World War II than Brits. And does that mean
more Japanese died? Let's talk about that. The Japanese culture and morals in war was, instead of surrendering, pulling out their sword and stabbing themselves in the chest.
Right.
How can a Westerner even fathom to do that
Different
if they lost a
values.
battle? Totally different realities.
And the other thing you mentioned about rockets, there was over 1,000 rockets at its peak being shot at Israel every single day. Thank God the Iron Dome for blocking these, and these were indiscriminately fired. Like you said, Israel does this thing called knocking, where they will send a very like shaky bomb to a building that'll just shake the building, but it does no real damage, to let everybody know to get out because this is going to, be destroyed. Just the mere fact that Hamas is hiding behind hospitals. Obviously, what they're saying is, we know that the morality of Israel is to not bomb civilians if they can avoid it. So we're going to hide behind hospitals. They are implying Israel's morality in their warfare, essentially, because if it was reversed and the Jews were hiding in the hospitals, they'd bomb the whole hospital.
I mean, I've been to the Lebanon border, I've been to the Gaza border, I've been to the Judea and Samaria, as some people would call the West Bank. And you want to talk about Palestinian state, yeah? The West Bank is called the West Bank because it's the west bank of the Jordan River. It was occupied by Jordan for 20 years. Gaza was occupied by Egypt for the same 20 years. Did we see a Palestinian state? No. We didn't even see calls for a Palestinian state. That's when understanding of Islam is essential. That flag that they use to describe or to label the Palestinians is the flag of Pan-Arabism, Islamic colonialism, the caliphate. That's why you see there's this non-state entity in Western Sahara, the far western side of Africa, yeah? It's called Western Sahara, yeah? The flag is literally identical to the Palestinian flag, apart from one difference. It's got the crescent moon and star in the middle of it, yeah? How could it have the same exact flag as Palestine thousands of miles away across Africa? Because it's Islamic colonialism. Those colors each represent a different faction of the Islamic colonialists, yeah? So the red triangle has a star in it for Jordan because that's the Hashemites, yeah? That's the Hashemites part of the Islamic colonialism. And people, this is why it's not based in truth, and it's not actually about Palestine or Israel or the Jews. It's about the destruction of Western society, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not about truth. In 1970, and this is very much driven by the Soviets. That is essential to understand as well. In 1975, the USSR went to the UN and said Zionism is racism. Yeah? Goes back to what I said with ideological subversion. You flip reality and then you gaslight and persecute those that disagree. Zionism is racism. Israel is committing genocide. No, Hamas literally openly say they want to kill all the Jews, even the ones that aren't in Israel. That's a genocidal statement. Yeah?
And I think if Israel has the firepower to actually commit genocide if they want to.
In less than an hour.
Totally. And so it makes you think, like, why are people using this word? And that's where that ideological subversion comes in, where it's an abuse of the word, where they're reducing the word to basically mean nothing because it's overused so much. Now, if any warfare occurs, it's a genocide.
So that word is reduced to nothing, and that nothing is a club to beat people with. The same as fascist, racist, homophobe, all of these things, they become meaningless, and that you just misogynist, you just beat people with it into submission. Yeah, that's literally fascism. The word fascism comes from fascio, it's an Italian word, and that means bundle. So it's like a bundle of sticks that surround an axe. Yeah, this is a Roman thing. And it's the power, the sticks represent the power of the group think and the dogma of the group, and the axe is the consequences of going against the group. That's what fascism means. And just to take it back to that and the necessary understanding of Islam in this context, Islam is a colonial movement disguised as a religion. The word Islam means submission to the will of Allah. Yeah. No other religion requires you to submit in the way that Islam does. Yeah. An example: if you defect from religion, the faith, yeah, you are murdered. If you are a non-believer in an Islamic state, you are at the very least taxed, usually killed. Yeah? In the Quran, it mentions Bani Israel, the children of Israel. What does that mean? It doesn't mention. I went to a campus in North Florida the other day and I spoke to the Muslim society on campus. This is how brainwashed they are. This is how much they've submitted and don't understand. Yeah? They're all free Palestine, free Palestine. I asked them, why are we promoting Jerusalem? Because they've got the picture of Al-Aqsa and the Dome of the Rock on their leaflets. And I said, why are we promoting Jerusalem? It's not mentioned in the Quran. And they said, yeah, it is. I said, no, it's not. And they said, yeah, it is. No, it's not. Jerusalem, Al-Quds in Arabic, is not mentioned in the Quran. Yeah? Palestine is not an Arabic word. It's not mentioned in the Quran. Guess what's mentioned in the Quran? Dozens of times. Bani Israel, the children of Israel. So it's not about the truth. It's not about Israel, this whole conflict. It's about turning people in the West towards resentment, dejection, demoralization, and hatred. Because that's how you topple a society with morals, is you create like this information soup where we're in the information age, right? We should know everything, but no, we know nothing. And if there's no ability to actually come to reasonable conclusions, then how can we fight anything if we can't even identify our enemy? How can we start to fight them? So that's why my organization is called Peace Through Strength, because if we, in the time where we know nothing and everything is so overwhelming and we've got all this information and we can't make anything out of it, one thing we have to fall back on is being strong, being great, and always striving to get stronger. And if we're getting stronger, we can't be getting weaker.
One of the things that always shocks me is how little Muslims know about the Quran. I'll ask them, what are the 5 pillars of Islam? And they won't be able to name one. Then I'll say, do you know how the Quran is organized? And they'll say, chronologically. I say, no, it's not chronological at all. It's from largest surah to smallest surah. What are the verses called? And they don't know. They can't even say ayah or whatever. And I'll say, what's your favorite surah? Do you have one? Like, any interest there? And there's no response. And it just gives me this impression that what people are following, they're not following because they love the text, they believe in what it says. They're following it because the crime or the punishment for apostasy is death.
Submission.
If I leave this, I die.
It's the definition of the word. It's not a religion. It's a death cult which requires you to submit. And we are submitting right now in the West because we are weak. If we are strong, we won't submit. We'll have the clarity of mind to stand by our morals. We don't have to focus on all the information. This is why combating this war, whatever it is, transgenderism, Palestine, climate, COVID, I don't care, feminism, any of this stuff, veganism, doesn't matter. If we combat it with information, we're going to lose.
One thing I think people miss as well is, in the US we have freedom of religion. That's great. That's important. But what do you do when the religion begins to compete with the law? In Surah 9:29, it says, fight those who don't believe. Present Islam to them, and if they don't believe it, you can cut off their heads. That's competing with the U.S. law as far as I understand the U.S. law. What do we do there? Do we pander? Or do we draw a line? And this is where Takia comes in, which very much scares me, because this concept that they could just be letting it slide in the meantime so that they can have the ultimate cause in the end. That's how do I know the difference between someone that doesn't really follow the Quran, they're just kind of culturally Muslim, or someone that's committing to Takia?
So that's so funny. Well, first of all, Zoran Mamdani, his smile is Takia central. It's just like, free buses, don't worry about the fact that I'm a Muslim, alhamdulillah. Like, guys, I just want a hug. The way he smiles at the transgenders at these rallies, it's terrifying. Like, because obviously this is his voter base, so he's got to smile and be like, I'm gonna kill you, but like this is awesome. Yeah, it's terrifying. Because we're weak, we can't see an enemy. We can't even identify our enemies. The Hadith, Muhammad's law, yeah, Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb, the house of Islam and the house of war. Islamic law states that if it's not controlled by Sharia law, it is the house of war, which is just so unequivocally an enemy of everything we stand for. So, and it's, like I said, this is why it's so essential to understand. This is from the Soviets. This is the Soviets, the Red-Green Alliance, that really pushed this from the start. Like, the Islamists are not clever enough to do this. This is the Soviets. Why? Like I said, the Zionism is racism, the flipping of reality. Right? Zionism is literally the opposite of racism. It's the belief of self-determination of an ethnic minority that's been exiled from their land for thousands of years. and persecuted everywhere they went for being too successful. Oh God, sue us. We'll win because we're good lawyers. But listen, like, the Soviets have made us obsessed with race because we're striving for perfection. Yes, race and the racism in the West has been a problem. But when you strive for perfection instead of just getting better, the growth mindset, you'll die on that hill. Like I said, the people inviting the Islamists in are the same people who are saying end violence against women. Yeah. So they've made us strive for perfection. They've made us obsessed with race to the point where we like go too far in the right direction. Yeah. The right direction is doing better with racism and violence against women, not just hiring black people and just hiring women because I feel guilty. Yeah. That's where we're at right now. And because we're so obsessed with race and we're so insecure, we have categorized Arabs and Muslims as like this subjugated minority. They are not that. They are a wolf in sheep's clothing.
One person that knows that better than anyone is Ayaan Hirsi Ali. I don't know if you follow her work. She's currently on the Al-Qaeda hit list for leaving Islam. And she talks about, she's an academic, and she talks about how she realized the detriment of her ex-religion. She says, violence is inherent in Islam. It's a destructive, nihilistic cult of death. Until we acknowledge that, reform is impossible. And I've heard, I've had some friends here in Miami who were fervent in their convincing of me that Islam was a religion of peace. And despite all the verses and the surahs and the ayahs that I showed them that said the opposite, they were convinced of this. Yet people who have been subjugated to it in really Islamic countries would religiously tell you, dogmatically tell you, that the atrocities they've seen done in the name of Islam is at the fundamental basis of the religion. So my question to you would be, is there a difference between fundamentalism Islam and Islam?
No. I tweeted something I like to think was pretty funny the other day. There's a Muslim MP that happens to be a British citizen, member of parliament in the UK. And he said, I am a Muslim. I am British. I am a patriot. I'm proud to be British, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I responded, if you are a Muslim and you believe in Sharia law, then you are not a patriot. If you are, I'm trying to think exactly what I said. If you are a patriot, then you can't be a Muslim because then you believe in Sharia law, then you're not a patriot. It was much more eloquent than that. But it was funny because it's just, by definition, you can't be. It's just impossible. Taqiyya is just the perfect thing for them to be able to infiltrate our societies, and it's actually evidence for the fact that they are. Taqiyya is the permission to hide or conceal your religion, or to even go against the teachings of Islam to further Islam. So Mamdani's smiling and clapping at the transgenders. Yeah, that's the perfect example of taqiyya, and lying about the fact that it's the religion of peace. All of these things. And that's proof that it's a colonial movement and not a religion. Islam as an ideology must be stopped, and there is no such thing as moderate Islam. There's no such thing. If you're a British patriot, then you can't believe in Sharia law. Therefore, you're not a Muslim. Yeah? By definition of Muhammad. Yeah? If you believe in Sharia law, then you can't be a British patriot. You can have people who say that they're Muslim because it's cute and it makes them a bit of a minority, and they like to eat, I don't know, baklava. That doesn't make you a Muslim.
This was actually, you led into my next question actually, which is, do you distinguish between Muslims as a people and Islam as an ideology?
Of course, because the word Islam means submission to the will of Allah. They've all submitted in their own way. Like I said, they might not keep Ramadan, but maybe they don't drink, or maybe they like to pray, but they're not a Muslim by the definition of Muhammad. If they're not furthering Islam, they're just not. They can call themselves whatever they like, yeah, but they're just not. That's not what they are. So, and I've been invited to Muslims' houses for dinner in Egypt. I stayed with Bedouins in Jordan. like I've Muslims as people are great people, but they have submitted to Islam. Yeah.
What about those that haven't? You know, that they say they're Muslims because they want to either fit in with the friends and family that they've always had, or they just frankly don't want to face the punishment of apostasy. And they just say they are, but they don't, you know, they're not interested in extending the caliphate. They're not interested in killing anybody that doesn't believe. What about those people?
They're not the issue. They're the same as any other person who is or isn't a Muslim. People just fall in line. People are sheep, especially when the consequences for not falling in line are so great. People have submitted, and we're submitting the same way by not talking about it, by not fighting it. Islam is the problem, not individual Muslims. But like I said, this mostly Soviet ideology has taught us that it's a race and not a religion, and tried to teach us that Jews are a religion and not a race. Yeah, we're an ethnicity before we're a religion. That's the difference between being Jewish and being Christian and being Muslim. Individual Muslims are not the problem. There are individual Muslims that are problematic and violent and are the enemy of our society. They're Islamists because they're the ones that actually act on. They're actually the real Muslims. The Islamists are actually real Muslims because they are the ones that follow the instructions of Muhammad. Literally, the only thing you have to do to become a Muslim is to state the shuhada, which is to basically say that Muhammad is my prophet.
I'm wondering if you believe there's a sort of responsibility of these Muslims who aren't really following the Quran to speak against the Muslims who are following it.
Absolutely, but it takes a hell of a lot of courage. I mean, I put a target on my back. You put a target on your back. Imagine growing up as a Muslim with Muslim family and Muslim friends and then trying to go against it. Even if just one of those people in that circle is an Islamist, even if none of them are, they know one. Yeah? They know an Islamist, or they know someone who is more Islamist than someone else. And that gets around because everyone knows every one of them knows to some degree just how crazy it is to step away. And that's why you don't get these peaceful Muslims speaking up. You just don't get it because the consequences are so high.
I mean, I'd be terrified too. If I was born into a family, very devout Muslims, and I was second guessing it, I could see a huge temptation to just fall in line rather than speak up, even though I would know that the right thing to do is speak up. One thing that Albert Einstein said is he said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." And that strikes me because you want to live a life of purpose. You want to say you have a big impact on the world. And yet we've got these big questions, and the much easier thing to do is to just fall in line and not exist in their eyes. But if you speak up, like you said, you're putting a target on your back. So I guess in your travels throughout the US, and we'll get to this in a second too, have you seen such cases of people speaking up that are inspiring? What lessons can somebody who wants to speak up learn?
It takes courage. There's no easy route. Yeah? Being a Muslim and leaving the religion is the perfect example of just how essential courage is. There's no shortcut. Yeah? It takes courage to step out of the line, to step out of being a sheep, and to look back on the sheep and to say, this is what's moral. This is what I see, and this is what's going on. And to say it with conviction. It takes being bold. That's why, I used to work in construction. I had a pretty successful career back in the UK. I saw what was going on, slowly but surely, and then October the 7th happened, and the realizations came thick and fast, especially since I came back home from Egypt 2 weeks before October 7th. So I got all my 6 months of traveling in, and then virtually immediately after, I had all that perspective, and I gained so much gratitude from all of that solo travel. And I became a man, really. And then I touched down back in the UK 2 weeks later, back to working my corporate job. And immediately I felt different as a Jew in a corporate British environment. Like I said, the anti-Semitism never goes away. It's never gone. It's never non-existent. People just have less of a reason to be hateful of Jews, right? If you're not dejected and you're not demoralized, then you have less of a reason to be resentful. and hateful. Yeah, as society heads towards difficulty and pain, then they have a reason to be hateful and to want to tear down the system. So courage is the ultimate virtue. That's a quote from Aristotle, and that's something that Charlie Kirk would say all the time. He said he wanted to be remembered for courage, for his faith. There's a reason they got him and not Ben Shapiro or Douglas Murray or or Piers Morgan or any of these other guys. There's a reason they got him. It's because he was courageous, he was bold, and he ensured that people kept talking. And not the people who agree in their echo chambers. He made sure that there's a crowd of 1,000 people that agree on most things. He disagrees with me. Bring him to the front. That takes courage. That takes strength. Yeah, there's no shortcut to any of this. He was like a saint. Like Trump said at his memorial, jokingly, very funny, actually. He said, Charlie's going to be mad at me for this, but and Charlie loved his enemies. Charlie loved the people who disagree with him. And he goes, Charlie, I'm sorry. I hate my enemies. It takes a stronger person than me and a stronger person than Donald Trump to show so much love for the people that vehemently disagree with you. Yeah? So it takes so much courage and strength to be like, right, I stand by my morals and I'm ready to defend them. And I'm ready to talk out about them and to defend them when people, however violently they want to scream at me for them. You know?
Yeah, Charlie Kirk's death wrecked me. I was a wreck for 2 weeks off of that. I had followed his stuff pretty closely for 5 years or so and just seen how he kind of went up the ranks. And he was so instrumental in so many young people's lives for not necessarily agreeing with him, because he didn't need that, but thinking for themselves and free speech. And one of the things that killed me after his death was what people came out and said that he said. And it was just not true. I disagree for the most part with sometimes how he said things, but what he said, the mission behind it, if you watch him talking with people that you would think that he would disagree with, people from the LGBTQ community, right? Gay conservatives, gay liberals, he was very honoring of them and loving. And so to that point of loving your enemies, I think he did his best truly to live out his beliefs from the Bible. And that's why, I think he grew in 5 million followers the day after his death, right? His cause has exploded. They'll actually be there at Ryan's arrival in London, TPUSA, supporting him, and the cause has grown. You mentioned one thing as well, though, that he had courage that perhaps maybe Ben Shapiro, Douglas Murray, different guys definitely have, but not maybe at the same level. We've seen sort of this infighting recently in the conservative movement. Tucker Carlson hosted Nick Fuentes, and then Ben Shapiro was, why would Tucker do this? Megyn Kelly had her opinions on he should be able to do whatever he likes. Have you caught up with this, and any thoughts on that?
It's not necessarily that the Ben Shapiros and the Douglas Murrays don't have the courage. It's that they don't have the call to action. They're like the best analysts, they're great speakers, and they're political correspondents, and they're extremely intelligent. But it's not analysts that are going to save the world, and they are going to form the resistance to the decay of our societies. It's the people that say, this is what we need to do, not this is what's happening. Charlie Kirk strongly would look at you and say, this is what we need to do. We must be strong. We must form a family. We must be proud of our religion and stand by it with courage, etc., etc. That's why they went after Charlie Kirk. And what we see with the right is, again, evidence for why Jew hatred is not about the Jews. It's evidence for why we cannot attack what's going on politically. Because, and you can't go after this. Like I said, this is why they didn't go after analysts or authors. They went after people with a strong call to action, because and that call to action is what will turn the course of our culture. And that's what's necessary. We don't need to change people's mind politically. We need to change people's mindset about themselves. If you've got no self-confidence and you don't have the perspective to have gratitude in order to know what you're standing up for and protecting in the first place, doesn't matter. What does it matter? We have to be able to understand what we're fighting for and understand what we're fighting. And that requires a strong moral compass. It doesn't require an analysis as much as it requires formidability.
One thing you've mentioned is that the diaspora of Jews might be pandering a little bit in their various societies. One thing I've heard you say to combat that is to make Aliyah, take that trip back to Israel. You've been a big proponent of that. I think you even worked in it for a little bit. For those that are on the fence, those Jews listening that are on the fence about making Aliyah, sell them on it. What's the sell here?
I always ask this question of the Jewish communities I speak to. Why is Israel, a country at war, consistently rated one of the happiest countries on earth? And the answer to the question, the West, not just Jews, need to learn a lot from. Israel was rated the second happiest country on earth in the most recent large poll. How? Is it because we love committing genocide? Come on. Is it because we love war? No, obviously not. If you've ever met a Jew or an Israeli, you'd know that neither of those things are true. Yeah? Why? Because we are family oriented. We have a history of persecution and a present of persecution. It's just non-stop. We have shared trauma. We have shared values, essential. We uplift one another. We have a very strong purpose. And we don't have the luxury to be complacent. Our complacency, focusing on the little things, the little issues, relatively little issues like the politics, made us blind and gave us October the 7th. We were internally divided. We were focused on trivial things relative to physical immediate safety and security, and we paid a huge price. Israel is rated the happiest country on earth. It was given second, but they're never going to let the Jews win, are they? Yeah. Israel is the happiest.
Who's first, you know?
It's like Finland or Lithuania, something like that. It's the Jews. Come on. Yeah. But people just don't want to admit it. Israel is the happiest country on earth because we have a very strong purpose and we don't have the ability to get complacent and get comfortable. We have all the creature comforts in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. We have incredible food and air conditioning and nice cars and blah, 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 and freedom. But why with all of that are we miserable here and lacking purpose? Because we're lacking purpose. Because we don't have the constant reminder that life is precious. That's actually one of the biggest reasons I moved. Not just because I feel in my heart and I felt when I was there and I felt when I left that Jews belong in the land of the Jews, Israel, in our ancestral homeland, but also because we know what it means to live because we're constantly reminded about how precious life is. If we don't have that perspective, we take things for granted, we strive for perfection, and we stop the growth mindset, right?
How much do you think the fact that they all need to go through the IDF fuels that shared values, shared purpose, and camaraderie?
Or in school, before they're 16, they have to do like 60 hours of volunteering. The mindset in Israel is we and not I, which is all, it's forced upon them. It's not just forced upon them because of conscription. That's not what I'm referring to. It's forced upon them because they're constantly reminded that people around them want to kill them. So what choice do we have other than to stick together? And when we don't stick together, we're reminded in the most horrible ways. Yeah? So what has to happen in the West for people to remember? And will it be too late? I hear all the time. I hear people say, oh, Britain is screwed. And also say, I'm not doing anything about it. I'm just going to stick to my 9 to 5. And from Jews, Britain is screwed. I'm staying. I'm not making Aliyah. You have Israel. But people it's like the devil you know. In the Bible, only 20% of the Jews left Mitzrayim, left slavery in Egypt. 20%. It's the devil you know. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. It takes courage to step away from the devil you know and to go into the unknown. Yeah?
So when did you make that decision to officially leave the UK and reside in Israel? What prompted that?
A lot of things. From about the age of 16, as I said, I left my Jewish bubble and that's when I started on my journey of gratitude and understanding and preservation and like nurturing that, my relationship with that, with my Judaism and my Jewishness. I always wanted to serve in the army, always. I have a very serious injury in my spine, which prevents me from doing combat. And that delayed my aliyah, that delayed my moving to Israel by about 6 years. I wanted to when I was 18, I couldn't. I ended up starting a great career in construction, and I ended up traveling the world, and I ended up doing security and teaching self-defense to the Jewish community in the UK, and it shaped who I am as a human being. I wouldn't be here if I didn't stay. I always knew I was going to end up in Israel. I didn't know how or when or what would prompt it. I was dating outside of my community for a long time in the UK, excuse me. And when October the 7th happened, as I said, sometimes you need these horrible reminders that life is precious, that you need to stick together in order to do so, and in order to be grateful, the perspective, to have the gratitude, to have the courage, right? That's when I realized, wow, I have to find a Jewish wife. I don't know why I was dating elsewhere. And we live in these societies of just like, tolerance and acceptance, and people just want to date elsewhere, and it's like, oh, it's racism if you discriminate against everyone else. No. Again, we're tribal beings. We should be sticking together. And I think that's a big part of why trust in society is at an all-time low. Like Britain went from one of the highest trust societies in the world to like one of the lowest trust societies, because a friend to everyone is a friend to no one, and definitely not a friend to yourself. In Israel, we have to be sticking together. We have to trust each other. Everyone is so quick and ready to help each other in Israel. Doesn't matter if you're Jewish. If you're an Israeli, people are there to help. And I felt the stark cultural differences when I was visiting Israel before moving. And my parents don't have a very strong connection to Israel. I hope they'll end up moving there. I think they will. But when I went there, and many Jews say the same, when you get off the plane, you realize you kind of just can, oh, now I can breathe. Now I feel like I'm home. Now I feel like I'm where I belong. And the people remind you of that. The people and the way Israeli people live reminds you that, wow, in the West, we take life for granted. We take everything for granted. And I think that's the thing. I'm not sure whether that was the thing that pushed me to move, but it was something that reminds me every single day when I live in Israel, how grateful I am to live in Israel. And all of Jewish culture and tradition and the Torah and the Bible is centered around gratitude for survival. All of it. From the Purim story with Esther presenting herself to the king and revealing her Jewish identity to save her nation. From the Maccabees defending against the Greeks. From every single story. From Moses confronting the Pharaoh of Egypt, from every single story in the Bible is a celebration of, they tried to kill us, they failed, we prevailed against all odds, let's eat. That's just the whole story, basically. It is. And
we can all buy into that last part.
And that's one of perspective, gratitude, and courage. In every single one of those stories, there's courage. And when we have too much comfort, when we have too much luxury and abundance, we lose sight of that.
So, you mentioned this before, and I love that you said this. The things that people need to hear the most are usually the most painful things to hear. I'm interested, what do you believe are those painful things that we're also reluctant to hear or accept?
Everyone watches the news. People see what's going on. They don't want to understand it. As I said, I won't go back to England. I spent 24 of my 25 years growing up in London, and I won't go back because they want to arrest me for the things that I've said on social media, on Facebook. Yeah? Our freedom is so fragile. Our abundance is not natural. People don't like change. Fundamentally, people don't like change. People like comfort. Like I said, the rat and the unlimited cheese. Why would they move away from the unlimited cheese? Why would they even want to think that there's another reality other than the unlimited cheese? Yeah? Until you give them the perspective that life is precious, that reality is actually a brutal one. Nature is not working for you. Your mind is not your friend. Yeah? Happiness is not your prerogative. Then they don't have the perspective to have the gratitude, to have the courage to defend anything in the first place. So the things that people don't want to hear but need to hear is that you're weak. Because You're weak because you're tolerant and you're not capable of strength. You're kind all the time. That you're actually just a doormat. Yeah? People are so weak, they attach only emotions to their opinions and not fact. So when you confront them with all the facts about Islam or all the facts about X or Y, doesn't matter if you give them testimony of people who've experienced it and have the most valid opinion or perspective on a situation or a subject, they just can't process it. It just hits a brick wall and it starts to actually hurt them because their opinion is based in emotion and not fact. So the difficult things that people need to hear is that they are weak. And if they don't stand up for their values with courage, which is scary, but it's not as scary as you think. Like when I first started taking kickboxing when I was 8 or 9, I used to, every single time I used to flinch and blink when a punch is getting thrown towards me. Every single time. It took me a long time to get over it when I was a kid. I was not tough as a kid. Not at all. And you see like a karate kid where they do this in the water and they get the water to splash in their eyes just to train the flinch thing. And one of my kickboxing coaches said to me, like, step into the fire because the fire is not as hot as it seems. If in boxing, if you just always stay on the outside and just try to punch like this, you're going to get, the other person's going to come onto you and you're not going to be able to defend yourself. But if you step in, you're not going to give them a chance to hit you. It's counterintuitive for someone who's not got that courage built in.
I mean, it's like that, I forget which proverb it is, but grab a thistle timidly and it'll cut you, grab it aggressively and you'll crush it, right? It's a great quote.
And I think the scariest things for people are their own thoughts, especially today. When you don't test yourself physically, like I said, you don't give yourself a reason to trust your intentions or your motivation or whatever. So the uncomfortable things that people need to hear is that they need to get stronger, and getting stronger requires pain. It's not like I bumped my head sort of pain. It's I've gone into the gym and shredded my muscle. Like my muscle is literally, the fibers are ripping to create gaps to then be filled by more knowledge, more wealth, more strength, more courage, right? In this case, more protein. But and to do that, to use that metaphor in a mindset way, stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself difficult questions that you're shy about the answer. Do I go into everything with courage? And it takes courage to do anything meaningful. It takes courage to step out of your comfort zone. To step out of your comfort zone and be courageous, you need that to ask a girl or a guy out on a date. You need that to ask your boss for a pay rise. You need to be courageous. You actually need courage before you step into the office and ask for a pay rise, because it takes courage to ask yourself, what am I worth? Do I have this growth mindset? Am I worth the next step up in my job? And that takes courage to really ask yourself the difficult questions. Am I doing enough? Because you could just say yeah. But that's just, the air is the couch, right? But no, I'm going to stand up. You can't appreciate a sunny day without the rain. You can't appreciate your $2,000 couch without walking up the stairs. But because we have all of these things handed to us, even if we don't have much money at all, there's no incentive for it. And like I said, happiness is not your prerogative. All these uncomfortable and difficult things that we need to hear and then we need to put onto ourselves, it's voluntary because we're not forced to anymore, because we live these unnatural, beautiful and luxurious lives. So the difficulty has to be self-inflicted. And the pain is positive. It's not, don't associate that pain with the pain that you're used to being inflicted on you. You have to be able to put yourself through adversity and pain so that when external pain and adversity is put on you, it's water off a duck's back. You know how to respond to it. And I use this a lot. I talk about adrenaline, to go back to the Huberman stuff. I talk about adrenaline a lot. Adrenaline can either act so strongly for you, it can save your life and those around you, or it can make you answer the maths question really quickly and really confidently, or it can give you the concrete boots, concrete shoes, make you freeze, give you the deer in headlights moment. It can stop you from being able to scream or say even a word. And that's because you didn't put yourself through training of voluntary discomfort. Whatever that voluntary discomfort looks like. That's a question you ask yourself. That's an uncomfortable and difficult thing you say in the mirror is, am I making myself comfortable being uncomfortable? Because all this comfort's unnatural. So I need to be able to simulate the natural discomfort so that when it's put onto me in the rare occasion in these beautiful, luxurious fairyland societies, I'm ready for it. So I used this example. I was talking to kids the other day. I said, all of you have got a maths test coming up. Yeah? I don't know if they did or didn't. And I said, I don't care how good you are at maths. Don't care. Answer a maths question. Take a very similar one of a similar difficulty. Run up 10 flights of stairs and answer it immediately afterwards. See how you do. Can you think clearly? Does that heart rate increase strive you to more quickly find the answer, or to not understand the symbols on the page? Yeah? That's your answer of how strong and formidable you are and how comfortable you are.
You mentioned courage, and courage has obviously brought you on a journey. You left your construction job, moved to Israel. Now you're touring the US. Tell us a bit about what this tour is for. What's the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And how long have you been? Where have you been?
The goal of this tour is to change the course of our culture, because the course of our culture is headed down a very dark path. The purpose of my tour is to save society as we know it. And that sounds crazy. That sounds bonkers, quite honestly. But you know what sounds more bonkers? Seeing the shit that we see in the news every single day and then turning the news off and going about our day. Buying a place in Florida, moving from New York down to Florida, and continuing to bury our head in the sand. That's more bonkers than me saying, I'm here to wake America up to what's going on, to show America what's going on in Europe and say, you are making the exact same mistakes. Wake up before you have the same fate. Europe's not done. It feels like it's done. It looks like it's done. But if we can change people's perspective, if we can give people gratitude for the things we've taken for granted for decades, we can shift the course of history. And I don't mention political parties. I don't start to get into that because it's not productive. We've tried that. We've tried the intellectual route. We haven't tried the courageous route. And the one guy that did got assassinated for it because whoever assassinated him knew that he was onto something, knew that that's how we fight this. Because politically, intellectually, like I said, information soup. We have all the information, but we don't know what to fight. We don't know what we're fighting, and we can't come together. We can't unify. The biggest problem on the right is that there's no unity to fight what we're up against. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro. Who cares? They're all weak. We need leaders. We need warrior generals. And that doesn't mean I'm going out and starting fights. That means I'm strong enough and I'm courageous enough and I'm bold enough to go out there and stand up for my virtues, to stand up for my morals, and to stand up for my identity. And there's going to be people who are resentful and a bit jealous, and they're on the right or the left, and they're going to say, who is this guy, a British Israeli Jew, probably Mossad paid, yeah, coming to America to tell us what to do? Look at yourself in the mirror and say, why am I saying that? Am I resentful of the Jews? Am I hateful because Israel is getting American weapons? If there was no Israel, there'd be no Christian holy sites left. Yeah? In the holiest site in Christianity. If there was no Israel, there'd be no live testing for all of your great weaponry. So, resentment, hate, weakness, jealousy, it's on both sides of the political spectrum. We need to stop fighting this politically. We have to understand the culture of weakness will be our downfall, will be what makes our children slaves. Period.
I love that. You mentioned one thing there that we should definitely touch on regarding the supposed Israeli payments to Israeli-friendly influencers. You're an Israeli influencer. One recent development I saw that came out a couple days ago was that the articles that were pushing that each Israeli influencer was getting $7,000 per post actually came out of Qatar. And that brings up a different question, Qatari funding as well. So I just want your general thoughts on this. Israel funding of influencers, Qatari funding of whatever, Tucker Carlson or influencers, whatever's happening there. What have you heard in the influencer sphere? And what's really going on here? being an influencer yourself?
I wish I got $70 a post.
I think it's 7,000.
Well, I wish I got 70. Yeah. I'm lucky I had a pretty decent career whilst it lasted in construction in the UK. And I went self-employed in 2023. I got lucky. And I've been living off of savings. And I am not bad with that sort of lifestyle. And it's finally starting to pay off with people that see my message and that see the importance and that see that the way we've been fighting it is not working. Yeah. But the mentality of the influencer circle is all wrong. And people are slowly starting to wake up to it. But it's not the influencer mentality or the influencer sphere that needs to change. It's the culture. We're so busy trying to educate ourselves. We've been told that the most important thing for a kid is to get to university. And universities indoctrinate our kids. And they don't make them any more capable. I had a degree. I went to Westminster University. Terrible place. Jihadi John, a very famous British Islamic jihadi, went to my university.
Well, at least they're hiring diversely.
There you go. They tell us that we need to go to university. They don't tell us we need to get stronger. They don't tell us how to make our mind work for us and not against us. They don't tell us anything that's actually useful. They don't even tell us how to file a tax report in school. They don't tell us anything useful for our lives. I learned nothing from university. Everything I learned when it comes to business, when it comes to intellect, and when it comes to actually dealing with people, because everything in life is people. It's not intellect, it's people. If your people skills are good, you'll succeed. Yeah? Was on building sites. Construction is a great career because you meet everyone, from the guy that's like on site like this, like that guy, yeah, to the multi-million, billion-dollar pound client. So I learned a lot. I learned everything I know from dealing with people, yeah? And I don't need to go to university for that. We're all so insecure about ourselves that we feel like we need to explain. We feel like we have to go to university because all of our friends are. It's the same goes for the influencer community, by the way. If I don't cover, Candace Owen said this, what difference does it make? What difference does my opinion on what Candace Owen said make to anything? What I use my platform for, which is why I think people follow me, because first of all, they see that I'm real and that my intentions are pure, yeah? And that I'm not earning $7,000 a post, not even earning 7,000 shekels a post, is that I go after weakness. And people want to get stronger. When they saw me getting attacked by these jihadis in London, even the left of the left, the wokest of the woke, people follow me. Even if they might disagree with me, they follow me because even a part of them wants to be strong, bold, and courageous. They do.
So then, last question here. There's probably two camps of people that are watching this. Those that vehemently agree with you and those that vehemently disagree with you. You're probably not going to find too many people in the middle. What's your message to those that agree? You've said the intellectual battle won't win this war, courage will. How do they tangibly go out there and achieve that courage? And to those that disagree with you, what would be your message to them as well?
Kirk, you're a fantastic interviewer, first of all.
Thank you.
To those that agree with me, well done. You're not afraid of your own thoughts, but you need to understand the call to action here. You might be strong in some way, in your own way. Courage looks different for everyone, but fundamentally, courage is the same. Courage is doing something good and positive, not knowing what will come of it for yourself. Like stepping into the burning building or whatever that may be, right? It also takes courage to stand up in the university lecture and say, no, professor, that's a lie, that's a libel, and you're spreading your opinion on a topic that requires critical thinking and an open discussion in the room, and you're spreading your dogma. That takes courage. People don't do that anymore. They just keep their head down. So do that. Next time you hear your university lecturer saying something that's either openly a lie or seems like to be their opinion on something that everyone should be thinking critically in their own way about, say, excuse me, that sounds more like an opinion than helping us come to our own conclusions. Can we, That takes courage. It takes courage to stand up for your morals and your values. If someone is rude about your Star of David or your cross, like the guy that was assaulted the other day, it took courage for him to go into the middle of that jihadi rally and just ask questions. He didn't start fights. He got assaulted for it. But if you're in the coffee shop and someone comments on your MAGA hat or your Star of David or whatever it may be, say, you don't have to shout at them. You don't have to start a fight. You have to say, excuse me, that wasn't very kind. I'm sorry this offended you, but if you want to complain about it, you can do it in a nicer way. It takes courage to even be nice about it, let alone to be confrontational. That's another thing. We're afraid of confrontation. We're afraid of conflict because we've become weak and coddled and we live in this luxury society where everything's hunky-dory. Yeah? Conflict is not bad. Conflict is essential training for growth. It's like your bicep has to go through a conflict to grow. Your brain is like a muscle. Yeah? So you have to go through conflict. Conflict is essential. And without courage, you'll avoid conflict at all costs. Conflict is getting out of bed even though it's cold and rainy out. That's conflict. Yeah? So it takes courage to get up on the first alarm. Yeah? So those are the people that agree with me. And to summarize that, make the people around you stronger. Call them out when they're complaining and they're bitching and they're moaning. Call them out and say, life's not about what happens to you. It's about how you react. You can change your mindset. You can do hard things. Say to yourself, you can do hard things. And it doesn't matter what those hard things look like. And slowly but surely, we will shift the culture towards trust and our morals and tolerance and freedom. If we can say to ourselves in the mirror, you can do hard things, and we start to go on that growth mindset journey ourselves, we need to be able to say that to our friends, because all the best leaders in the world are smart enough to have smarter people around them. And that's your responsibility. You need to be able to uplift the people around you. And if the people around you are not uplifting you, they're bringing you down. Yeah? So that's for the people that agree with me. For those that disagree with me, ask yourself why what I'm saying upsets you. Is it because you're not ready or willing to ask yourself these difficult questions? Can you stand in front of the mirror and actually finish these sentences and give yourself honest answers about being strong, about being courageous, about coming to your own conclusions rather than listening to what other people tell you to believe? Do difficult things. Turn your shower cold for 30 seconds at the end and realize just how comfortable you've been all these years. Yeah? Do difficult things and you'll realize that difficult things are not as difficult as they're egged up to be. Your comfort zone is not where your happiness lies. Your happiness lies in your trust in yourself. And you build that trust in yourself by constantly smashing goals that you're beating from your previous self, not anyone else in the room. That just breeds insecurity, anxiety, and lack of self-worth. You can't compare yourself to anyone else. Compare yourself to yourself. Ask yourself why all of these things about mindset and growth and strength and courage upset you, and come to your own conclusions. But first of all, understand that life is not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to it. And that the most difficult conversations are the ones you have to have with yourself. Do not shy away from the answers. Forget politics. Forget all of that noise. Information soup. We can't come to our own conclusions. Fine. Come to conclusions about where you want to go and whether you think you are doing enough. What is enough? Enough is working towards something greater than where you are right now.
Well, Sammy, I appreciate your time on this. Very wise man, lots of courage inherently. We'll be following everything you do for the rest of your time in the US, and the next time I see you will be in Tel Aviv.
Absolutely, my friend.
Thanks
Kirk,
for coming on, brother.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate you.